Hey everybody, how is it going out there? Hope you are having a fantastic Saturday. Garrett Green with you here for another edition of Shuckers Rewind. Hard to believe this is already our 7th episode of Shuckers Rewind. We are thrilled that you're tuned in and checking it out for you. We have a great game for you today. It was a day game, so we figured we'd do it during the day and switch it up a little bit and do it on a Saturday. We're also live here on YouTube as we bounce around between all of the Shuckers' various social media platforms. Before we get rolling today, do want to say a big thanks to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. They are our sponsor for this 7th episode of Shuckers Rewind. We've had a great presenting sponsor for each of these, and we're thrilled that they're a part of it. But without further ado, we're going to dive just straight into this ball game and take a look as we go back to June 11th of last year, Shuckers and Pensacola Blue Wahoos. So for a point of context for this game, so this game was occurring on June 11th, as we said, of last year. And this is after the Shuckers and Blue Wahoos had been in a very tight battle all season in the South Division of the Southern League. This was something that at one point during the year, Pensacola had a 6-game lead over the Biloxi Shuckers in the South Division. That was back in the middle of May, but Biloxi had a great stretch down the end of May, and they had made up ground to where going into this 5-game series against Pensacola, they actually were only down by 1 game. So they were coming into this riding a lot of momentum after winning 4 out of 5 against the Mississippi Braves. They've been playing really good baseball, and so it turned into a very competitive series between these two teams. We'll dive into a little bit more of that as we continue on, but, you know, today is about just sitting back, enjoying some baseball. It was a great sunshine day at MGM Park, so I'm just going to hang back and watch a little bit while Bowden Francis is on the mound. We'll give a little bit of context about where this game was as we move along. You are always welcome to drop your comments in. We'd love to see where you're watching from today, but without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and sit back, and we'll just watch Bowden Francis pitch for a minute here.
Watches a fastball miss just down low. And the counts run full. 23 driven in, the Blue Wahoos right fielder, who homered on the second pitch of the game yesterday. The set and the 3-2. That one is lifted back of home. Ranging back, McDowell throws the mask, stares up, and reaches up to bring it in. And it's a pop out and foul ground for Jalen Davis for the first out after he worked a full count. And that brings up Travis Blankenhorn.
And after McDowell retires Davis, let's set the rest of the Shuckers defense for you this morning. It's Cooper Hummel out in left, Trent Grisham in center, and Dylan Thomas plays in right. Weston Wilson is the third baseman, Patrick Leonard over at first. Bruce Caldwell plays at short today, CJ Hinojosa at second, and again McDowell doing the catching for righty Bowden Francis.
Who comes home with the first offering, and it's taken knee high for a strike by the left-handed hitting Travis Blankenhorn, 0-1. Calling the balls and strikes today is our crew chief, Jose Navas. Sam Birch is over at third and Cody Clark at first. The 0-1. Curveball swung on and missed. The count now 0-2 as Blankenhorn, when he came around, clipped the face mask of McDowell. And the count no balls and 2 strikes to Blankenhorn. Francis looking to work quickly. Sets and fires the 0-2. Another swing and a miss on a slider. First strikeout of the day for Bowden Francis. 2 gone and Jimmy Kerrigan to the plate. Well, if you're watching on our MILB.TV feed, that looks like a curveball from Bowden Francis, but it actually is a slider. That's what he calls it. We'll also throw a 4-seamer and a 2-seamer, and we'll mix in a changeup. But that slider with a lot of horizontal break, which you expect, but then also there's some good vertical drop to it. First pitch to Kerrigan, and that's that big sweeping slider in there for a called strike. 0-1 to the center fielder for the Blue Wahoos. No score between the Shuckers and Pensacola here in the top of the first. The 0-1 fastball is fought off to our right. And the count no balls and 2 strikes quickly to Kerrigan. Kerrigan, a 208 hitter this year in 30 games, 4 doubles, 4 home runs, 17 driven in. Francis rocks and fires the 0-2, and that's a fastball just below the knees. Taken for a ball, the count runs to 1-2 to Kerrigan. Well, Francis, the 6'5", 227-pound right-hander, an imposing presence on the mound, comes home with the 1-2. Slider brushes the batter Kerrigan off of the plate as he tried to go front door. And it runs the count even at 2 balls and 2 strikes. Francis operating quickly today with nobody on base. Rocks and deals the 2-2. And there's a slider swung through and missed for a strikeout. Over Pensacola.
All right, so already out of the gate, Bowden Francis taking care of business very quickly. You can see that early on in this outing, he really had that big sweeping slider working. That's a pitch where when it was on for Bowden, it was incredibly difficult for other teams to hit all season long. But as we continue along here, let's go ahead and set the stage a little bit more for what this game meant in context during the season. We said that coming into this series, the Shuckers were one game back of Pensacola with 10 left to play in the first half of the South Division of the Southern League season. So this was a direct battle for the South Division title. Now, you felt like this could have been where, look, if the Shuckers come out with 3 out of 5, they have a 1-game lead going into the back half and going into the 5 games that they had against the Jackson Generals, who themselves were in a big battle with the Montgomery Biscuits trying to win the North Division. So you know it was going to be a little bit more difficult. But instead, the Shuckers got great productivity and ended up sweeping this series. They got a 9-1 victory right out of the gate in this series. They got a 5-2 win with a big 3-run 8th-inning rally in game number 2. Trey Shupak was on the mound in game number 3. They got an 8-0 win in that one. And coming into this game, this was a Wednesday day game, so they had played Tuesday night the night before, and they had gotten a crazy 9-7 win. Jake Gatewood had driven in the winning run with a 2 RBI single in the 8th inning, so Biloxi had gotten a 9-7 win in that game. And the previous night, they didn't tax the bullpen a ton, but you knew that coming into this one, if you could just finish imposing your will and round off a sweep, you had as good of a chance as any to go into that final series against Jackson really in the driver's seat. At this point, because of the way that this had swung, the Shuckers were actually 3 games up on Pensacola heading into this game right here today. So that was why it was so important to get such a good outing. And Grisham, unfortunately, just got a little underneath this, but this was in the middle of this renaissance that Trent was in. By this point, he was hitting 267 on the season, and that number would only go up in his extra base hits. He had 13 home runs by now, 13 doubles, 3 triples, so this is right during this big stretch that Grisham was in, and it really all clicked together for Biloxi at this point.
Amount of time with a high ankle injury. He had 7 home runs in 107 games. So he's already hit more in the last 14 than he did all of last season. As this one is taken on the outer edge, it misses for a ball to Gatewood, 1-0. No score between the Shuckers and the Blue Wahoos. Just underway here in the bottom of the first inning. Day baseball in Biloxi on getaway day. The 1-0. That one's fouled straight back to the screen by Gatewood. It's now 1-1. It's a sunglasses kind of day here at the ballpark. Got the prescriptions on so I can still write in my scorebook and keep track of the game as well. The set and the 1-1 pitch. That one is in around the hands, fisted foul over the screen, and the count 1-2 to Gatewood.
Might get a little uncomfortable with the ear covers of the headset, so I'm just going to squint for the first couple of innings.
Well, I suppose I wear glasses every night, so it's a sensation that I'm a little more used to. But no, it'll certainly happen sometimes. Tutura peering over the glove. The right-hander is 1-2 to Gatewood. Checks his swing, but goes around on an outside slider, and Gatewood strikes out.
All right, so at this point, we're heading to the second inning. Bowden Francis is back out to continue working, and this is what's fun. I've said it on just about every one of these that we've done. The straightaway angle that we have on our center field camera at MGM Park, you can really see exactly how much movement guys have on their pitches, and for this game in particular, watching Bowden Francis pitch, I think, is going to be a blast for everybody out there because of the immense amount of movement that's on that slider that he has. And you can see that it comes out of his hand in the same spot as the fastball in those first 2 pitches of this sequence. He threw that big sweeping slider for a strike, and then the fastball comes out in the same spot but can ride in. And that's a foul ball that he got right there. So again, at this point, Bowden struck out the last 2 batters in the first inning as he went 1-2-3. And during this inning, we started flipping through the record books for the Southern League because Bowden got on this strikeout roll, and he was prone to doing this throughout the 2019 season. You always knew that he was a high-volume strikeout pitcher, and when he had everything working like this, I mean, that's impossible to hit on the outside edge. All you can do is try and just poke that the opposite way for a foul ball and hope that he misses a little bit more over the middle. But on this day in particular, Bowden just seemed absolutely dialed in. And it really followed a trend. Bowden wound up being kind of the fifth starter, and in minor league baseball, you have your rotation, and you know, you can define a guy who's a minor league ace if you feel like it, but where you fall in the rotation doesn't specifically determine, you know, if you're the ace of the staff to line things up. Again, Trey Shuckers won the Southern League Pitcher of the Year, Most Outstanding Pitcher. He pitched in the third game of this series. Rain, doubleheaders, all of that shifts as you go along. But the Shuckers were in this stretch right here where Bowden Francis was kind of their fifth-day starter, which meant that he was the getaway day starter as well. And that translated to a lot of day games. And something about Bowden in those day games, he was just lights out for them. I don't know if he could see a little bit better, if he was just more used to playing in the sunshine, if the batters weren't used to playing in the sun as opposed to the light. Though normally I know guys say that they can see the ball a lot better during the day in particular. But when the ball's moving as much as it is right there, it's next to impossible to try and catch up to. And so Bowden had this great stretch that he was on with the Shuckers where he was starting all of these 10:35, 11 o'clock, 1:05 games, and it seemed like he was at his best when he did that. And this is a point in the season for Bowden where he was coming in, and look, he had been promoted from Carolina, and you saw the potential that he had coming out of Chipola College, and you saw the high strikeout volume, as I already said just a minute ago. But at this point in the year, he was 1-0, but he had a 5.93 earned run average. He and Alec Bettinger both kind of did the same thing. It took them just a minute to adjust to Double-A, but I know that both of them worked a lot with Bob Malacky, and you know, we heard it from Dylan File when he was on an edition of Shuckers Rewind that we did a couple of weeks ago, where really at Double-A, it's not as much your mechanics or tweaks or things like that. What really makes the most amount of difference is just your game plan for hitters. And we have seen what, you know, both Bowden and Alec Bettinger and Dylan File and Trey Shuckers, the whole litany from 2019, what they were able to do when they were on the mound. But this is a point now where Bowden has actually struck out 4 consecutive batters. He's retired all 5 that he's faced, and he's trying to finish it off quickly here in this frame.
Bacon. Yep. And the biscuit available as well.
Yep. 1-2. Fastball, bottom of the zone, called third strike. And Bowden Francis has retired all 6 that he's faced, and he struck out 5 consecutive batters. That sends us to the bottom of the second inning.
So for this edition of Shuckers Rewind, we're actually going to go ahead and skip the bottom of the second inning. Patrick Leonard singled, but then it was a fly ball out, strikeout. So the Shuckers didn't do a whole lot offensively. The goal is to watch Bowden Francis work. There's a great backdoor slider that he had in this outing. And so that's why we have skipped ahead to the third inning. Do want to take an opportunity here as Bowden continues work to remind you that this edition of Shuckers Rewind is brought to you by our friends at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi.
Bowden Francis, 5 in a row he has struck out. 6 in a row retired to get things started. He delivers, and a fastball misses down and inside. It's 2-1 to start out the 7-hitter and shortstop Michael Davis. Davis, a part of yesterday's action in the 7 spot as well. He swings and fouls one above the on-deck circle on his own side. Into the net it goes. And it's 2 balls and 2 strikes now on Davis. Tough one for him at the plate yesterday. It was 1 for 4, did single in the 6th, but struck out 3 times. Bowden Francis winds and throws, and the 2-2, a breaking ball that just misses high and away. That slider right there with not as much movement as some of the ones we've seen in this game from Francis. That sweeping slider that drops off the table. Payoff pitch, breaking ball inside and fought away down the first baseline. And Davis now in a full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes. The Blue Wahoos going with the same exact lineup as yesterday, other than the 9 spot, where they had Tanner English hit. Today it's Taylor Jellikowski. And the pitch, strike 3, called outside corner. Bowden Francis, 6 in a row he has struck out. Got the final 2 outs.
So again, this is the point where we started pulling out the Southern League record books to see what the record was for most consecutive batters struck out. We had gone and looked at this in 2018 as well. I believe that Nick Neidert had pitched a game against Biloxi for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, and he had struck out 7 consecutive batters, and that forced us to look in the record books, and I do believe that 8 straight struck out is the Southern League record that still stands right now. But we were vigorously thumbing through the record books at this point because, again, at this point, a guy is through 2 1/3 innings, and he's struck out all but 1 batter that he's faced. And there was no score at this point in the ballgame, but you just had a feeling that with the way that Bowden was pitching, all Biloxi was going to need was 1 or 2. And they were going to be in great shape for this day. And again, you know, you're looking at it right now for where this game was. The Shuckers had won 5 straight, 3 games in front of Pensacola. So if you can do it, you can go 4 games up with 5 left to play. And the rest was history, but you know, you almost hate pop-ups at this point. And, of course, we saw, you know, Mike Minor at the end of the 2019 season told a guy, hey, drop it, I want 200 strikeouts. No chance that's happening there to end the stretch of strikeouts, and that's the second out in this frame.
The Southern League record for most consecutive strikeouts in a game. It's been done 4 times in Southern League history at 8.
At 8 in a row. Comes to an end at 6, and I assume if you had gotten Navarreto, you'd drop that piece of knowledge. So we knew history was on the line. The pitch was fouled back.
Have it regardless. But yes, and you know what's funny is that I had the number in my head because if I'm remembering correctly, it was Nick Neidert who pitched here against Biloxi last season and struck out 7 in a row.
You're right. You know right around 5 or 6 that something might be up. That's when you say, well, this is a little bit unusual. And for Shuckers pitching, it's the longest stretch we've seen of consecutive strikeouts this year, 6 in a row.
Yep.
Taylor Jellikowski in a 1-1 count, and here's the pitch. And a breaking ball missed just to the outside. 2 balls and a strike.
I believe that was a game where, if I'm not mistaken, Neidert struck out something like 14 in the game.
Here's the turn and the 2-1 pitch. A strike taken on the outside half. Good location with the fastball in this inning by Bowden Francis. Really remarkable control out of all of his pitches so far early on. Looking to retire the lineup in order over his first 3 innings. 2-2. And it's foul tip just off the end of the bat of Jellikowski. And it rolls to the backstop. Jellikowski absent yesterday, as mentioned. The 9th spot, the only spot that's changed over in the lineup. Jellikowski last played in Game 2 of this series and was 0 for 3. The next pitch, breaking ball, hanging up there, a line drive into center field, and that will drop to the left of Trent Grisham. He fields it on 1 hop, and Taylor Jellikowski took advantage of a misplaced slider and records the first Pensacola hit of the game. So a 2-out single will turn the lineup card over. A stretch of 8 in a row comes to an end, retired for Bowden Francis. And now Jalen Davis, who has a couple of big flies on the series, takes strike 1. Davis popping out behind home plate to get the game started. Max McDowell removing the mask and retiring the Pensacola leadoff man and right fielder. Kick in the pitch as Francis works out of the stretch for the first time, and a slider misses low and away. 1 ball and 1 strike. Leadoff home run for Jalen Davis in yesterday's game. The second leadoff home run to start a game this series for the Blue Wahoos. Look to first. The kick in the pitch. 2-2, or excuse me, the 1-1 swung on and missed. It was a slider to the outside again as Francis continues to rely on the off speed heavily in this start. 1 ball and 2 strikes on Davis. And the pitch. Got him swinging. Chased another slider to the bottom of the 3rd inning, and we are scoreless.
All right, so that's 7 strikeouts for Bowden Francis through 3 innings at this point in the game. And by the time that you get here, you have a pretty good sense that he doesn't need many more to do something special, possibly set a career high, possibly touch a Shuckers record, which we'll touch on a little bit later. But we do move in sequential order here in the bottom of the third inning. Naturally, we want to see a little bit of the Shuckers hitting in this one. And this is the amazing thing to me, is that this is a point in the season where C.J. Hinojosa was batting 8th in the lineup. And we all know, with the way that the season wound up, he forced himself more towards the top of the order because of how hot of a hitter he was in the backstretch. But, you know, with as loaded as this lineup was, Dylan Thomas is hitting 5th, Weston Wilson is hitting 6th. You still had Trent Grisham, Cooper Hummel's in the leadoff spot in this lineup. So that's where it was just, you know, the lineup was loaded, but it's fun to see back how things were earlier on in the season in those various lineups that the Shuckers had.
Backhanded sliding pickup by Michael Davis.
That was a really good play by Davis.
Time to beat CJ.
Wow. It's a really good play out of the shortstop. Very deep in the hole, had to slide down to his backside and come up and just whips it over to first, beats CJ by a step.
Yeah, the pop to the feet and the transfer on the throw were almost simultaneous. That was well done by Davis, and really the thing that probably robbed CJ of a hit is how well struck that ball was and how quick it got to the shortstop. Now it's Max McDowell who takes the first pitch breaking ball low and away. McDowell ahead in the count to start 1-0. 3 strikeouts for Chutura on his side, just 1 base runner allowed, a single, and now McDowell, he hammers this one deep out to left field. Back is Jellikowski at the wall, gone. Max McDowell opens the scoring in the third with a solo home run. It's 1-0 Shuckers.
So that was a big moment for Max McDowell to hit a home run right there. He had a lot of balls that he hit during the course of the 2019 season that were at the warning track. There was a game in Pensacola in early May where the Shuckers fell behind 5-0 in the first. That was a game that Braden Webb started. He gave up a grand slam and was removed before he made it through the first inning. And the Shuckers fell behind 5-0. They nearly completed this just improbable comeback, and Max McDowell hit a ball that was all the way to the wall, that was caught 1 step shy of the wall, and ultimately the comeback fell, I think, a 2-run short for the Shuckers in early May against Pensacola. So I know for Max, at that point, it was his 3rd home run of the season. He didn't hit a ton in 2019, but he contributed in a lot of different ways to the Shuckers, especially had a pretty good on-base percentage as well, and then also contributed in the postseason. But that was a big home run because with the way that you've seen Bowden Francis pitch early on in this game, you had a feeling that might be enough. Just one might be all that you need. And the momentum was definitely riding with Biloxi at this point.
The ability to play with a deficit. 3 games of these 5, the Blue Wahoos have opened the scoring, but not today. 1-2 pitch, and Hummel swings at strike 3 over the top of an inside changeup. And he is the 4th strikeout victim for Chutura in this one. So now with 2 outs and the base is empty in the bottom of the 3rd, Trent Grisham will hit. Trent Grisham flying to center field, his lone time up, and is 0 for 1. 3 men to the right side of the infield, and he takes the first pitch inside ball 1.
Well, look at how extreme this shift is that they have for Grisham. This is one of the times he's coming to bat in this series that there isn't someone on in front of him, and we see that everything is really shifted around to the right side for Grish.
Michael Davis is swung over to the second base side, and Blankenhorn in shallow right, and Grisham takes a strike, fastball over the middle.
The impressive thing, though, to show the way that Grisham has great opposite field power is how deep Jellikowski is playing out and left, though, right now. And the fact that with a lefty up to bat, you also have your center fielder, Kerrigan, playing straight away.
Next pitch to Grisham, misses inside that time. A breaking ball from Chutura. Now 2 balls and 1 strike. It's really hard to warrant any sort of shift right now, though, with the way Grisham is hitting. He's been spraying the ball to all fields, going deep to left center, center field, right. 2 home runs yesterday, the 2-1. And he thought about it, but stayed patient. And it misses outside, 3-1.
Is it mad that with the way that this is shifted right now, all I see is this big open patch of grass out there in the right field area, like out towards the line?
Yeah, the right fielder, Jalen Davis, leaving a lot of room for Grisham down that line, and he takes a strike. It's now a full count, 3-2, and they've pushed the third baseman, Cesar, even closer towards second base now. I mean, he's pinching towards the middle.
Well, now with 2 strikes, you assume there's no opportunity to bunt for Grisham, but there is space over there on the left side.
Full count, and the payoff pitch ripped foul right field side and into a set of empty seats.
And again, with the way that Grisham is hitting the ball right now, the way that he's pulling it better than he has at any point really in his entire career, I'm with you. I'm surprised that Davis is leaving so much space down that right field line.
Base is empty. Shuckers leading 1-0 behind the McDowell home run, and now the 3-2. And Grisham lifts this one out into right field. Medium depth and playable for Davis, who comes in a couple of steps, settles, and makes the shot.
All right, so we're going to move from the bottom of the third on into the top of the fourth inning. This is our 6th edition of Shuckers Rewind. We're glad that you're joining us here on a Saturday. A reminder that this edition of Shuckers Rewind is brought to you by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. Big thanks to them for being the sponsor for today's episode of Shuckers Rewind. If you're just joining us for this, a reminder that this is Bowden Francis, one of the best games that we have seen out of him. And honestly, one of the best pitched games in Biloxi Shuckers history, especially from a strikeout perspective. 3 innings, 7 strikeouts in the ballgame. And what was really fun about this day is that as Bowden was pitching, of course, you know, we handle social media up in the booth as well. And so we're putting out numbers about that. This is a game that started at 10:35 a.m. So we were on before pretty much anyone else at this point. Major League Baseball, the minors, there were a couple of these games during the day, but especially in the Brewers farm system, there wasn't really much else going on. And I remember that we put out a tweet about 7 Ks through 3 innings for Bowden Francis, and it lit up social media. People got really excited about that. And, you know, they were only more excited after this incredible 4th inning that the Shuckers righty was able to put up with pitches like that. So, again, for this inning, I'll give a little bit of context if it's needed, but otherwise, I'm just going to sit back and watch Bowden pitch. Drop your comments in if you'd like. Ask us about what games we're going to air in the future or games that you have in mind or any questions about the 2019 season. We are here to answer them, but otherwise, I'm just going to hang back and watch Bowden pitch. This is one of the best innings of the ballgame.
It's the 2, 3, and 4 of Blankenhorn, Kerrigan, and Cesar due up in the inning. Payoff pitch from Francis, and he fans him with a curve. 8th strikeout now for Bowden Francis through 3 1/3. He has been rolling, struck out 6 in a row between the 1st and 3rd innings. And retired Jalen Davis to end that frame. Now gets Travis Blankenhorn for the 2nd time. Jimmy Kerrigan will now hit. Infield was heavy to the right side. Now they're back to straight up, and Kerrigan swings at the first pitch, a low cutter. And it's 0-1 to start out Jimmy Kerrigan. Now ties a season high in strikeouts for Bowden Francis, as this one is lined opposite way but foul right at the first base bag. And it's quickly 0-2 on Jimmy Kerrigan. But Bowden Francis struck out 8 in his first start of the year. That was in the Carolina League against the Down East Wood Ducks on April 4th. As he kicks and throws and strikes out Kerrigan with an inside fastball. Well, just as we talk about tie-in season high marks, it now is a new season high for Bowden Francis. 9 strikeouts through 3 2/3. Incredible. All but 2 of his outs, a couple of pop-outs, have been strikeouts so far. And now here he comes. And he misses down and outside to Randy Cesar. It's 1-0. 9 of his 11 for strikeouts. And he gets Cesar to swing through a fastball. It's 1-1. Bowden Francis now, he's just one strikeout shy of tying a career high mark. Here's the pitch. And a breaking ball misses down and away. 2 balls and a strike. Struck out 10 batters in a game back on June 25th of last season. Now he has a chance to tie that mark through 4 innings. And there's a fastball called strike on the outside half. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Bowden Francis trying to strike out the side for a second time today. The pitch got him swinging, and Bowden Francis, 10 strikeouts through 4 innings. He's tied a career high, and how much farther will he go? Some smoke coming.
And that was the impressive part about this. 10 Ks in 4 innings through Bowden Francis, and I have this written in my scorebook from that day. This is just to remind folks about how things were going in that series as well. By the time that Francis had that 10th strikeout, that was the 58th strikeout of the series. We were through 4 games and 4 innings of game number 5 at that point. So this was at a point in the season where the Shuckers pitching was really humming right along. It's a part of why they made such a big charge in the second half of the season, or in the second half of the first half of the season, to catch up and ultimately pass Pensacola. For a point of reference, in the month of April, as a whole, the Shuckers pitching staff had a 4.35 earned run average. Not bad, but a little bit higher than what you would normally like. For the month of May, they had a 2.57 earned run average. That's the second lowest ERA for a single month outside of September, where you only play 1 or 2 games. In franchise history, the only one that was lower was the first month of Biloxi Shuckers baseball in their history. April of 2015, that team had a 2.35 earned run average, and it was performances like what Bowden did in this game. It was performances out of Alec Bettinger. Trey Shupak was obviously a big driving force, but then also the bullpen was a vital part of that as well, with guys like Nate Greep and Luke Barker having, career months, Devin Williams being a big piece of it, Dan Brown, the list goes on and on for guys who were contributing out of the bullpen and really helping the Shuckers and the starting pitching staff. And so this was kind of just a continuation for what we had seen at this point. We skipped the bottom of the 4th inning. We went ahead and moved on to the top of the 4th because the bottom of the 4th was a strikeout, an error, a ground out, and a strikeout. So yet again, as we've done throughout this, because I think that this is just an incredible pitching performance, we're going to just hang back and watch a little bit. If you have your comments, leave them in the section. We'll get to them. But otherwise, just keep enjoying Bowden Francis with this absolute pitching clinic.
If you can believe it, in a week. Fastball misses down low. 2 balls and no strikes to Hamilton. Check that, 3-0. Hard to believe we are 1 week away from the 2019 Southern League All-Star Game right here at MGM Park. We are on the precipice. It'll be the next game played here at MGM Park as we go on the road. 3-0, get me over fastball is there for a strike, 3-1 to Hamilton.
Yeah, really looking forward to seeing some of these talents that come through the system or that are from surrounding systems coming into Biloxi. Some guys like Luis Robert and those Birmingham guys that we haven't seen in a while.
The set and the 3-1. That one is bounded foul. Count runs full now to Caleb Hamilton. Also going to see the likes of Taylor Trammell, who we've seen before, Ibandel Isabel, who hit the injured list for a minute, but is still going to be down here for the All-Star game. See if maybe he's a part of the home run derby. Of course, you have some of the guys from Mississippi who we saw in Pearl but haven't graced the field yet. The 3-2. Inside edge called third strike. And Bowden Francis sets a new career high, his 11th strikeout today. One gone here in the top of the 5th. With a man on, it's Michael Davis to bat.
Just painted the inside edge with a fastball, and what's been great about this performance is that Bowden Francis is almost alternating between pitches to strike guys out. He'll get one with the curve, that slider, then he'll go to the fastball and get a guy looking. It's just been this back and forth and changing of speeds.
First offering, fastball, outer edge for a strike to Davis, 0-1. 11th strikeout of the day for Francis, a new career high. It's also his 4th strikeout looking of the afternoon. I guess technically morning. The set, the 0-1. Outer edge, that misses, and the count now 1-1 to Michael Davis. Davis 0 for 1 with a strikeout his first time up back in the third. He was the end of those 6 in a row retired. Cues this one off the end of the bat. Caldwell comes on, gloves, throws on the run a little tall, but Leonard's got plenty of length and hauls it in over at first. 6-3 on the put out of Davis. Rort Vent moves down to second. With 2 gone, Brian Navarreto will be the batter. Just a number off of the end of the barrel from Davis. And that goes out to short, and Caldwell makes the good play. Another example today of the flexibility that the Shuckers have with their infield. Luis Aviles Jr., who's been pretty much an everyday player for the Shuckers, an all-star as well. He gets to spend a little bit of time on the bench today. Stay in the dugout, cool down. Rest of the legs, which he said felt so good when he stole 4 bases the other day. Francis rocks and deals. And the first pitch, a slider over for a strike, 0-1. Brian Navarreto, the first baseman, 0 for 1, popped out in foul territory 2 innings ago back in the third. Francis with the tying run at second, deals the 0-1. That one is hit high in the air out into left, but shallow. Ranging back is Wilson. He's called off by Caldwell, who settles underneath it about 4 feet in fair territory, out in shallow left, and makes the grab.
All right, so at this point, we're going to move on to the bottom of the 5th inning here on Shuckers Rewind. A reminder that this edition of Shuckers Rewind is brought to you by our friends at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. They are working hard for you all around the clock, but Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi brings you this edition of Shuckers Rewind. We've certainly been watching Bowden Francis mow people down from his start that he made back on June 11th of 2019. At this point, he has 11 strikeouts in the ballgame through 5 innings. We move on to the bottom of the 5th, and that must mean that something good happens for the Shuckers offense, so we'll watch along with that. Let us know where you're watching from if you're tuned in here on YouTube, and a reminder, our next one of these is going to come your way on Monday, so we'll be on the air on Monday night. We're going to go at 5:35 p.m. for that one, and it's going to be a replay of the game from April 20th of last season, and it was a game that featured a lot of up and downs early on in the season. It's always fun to do a kind of this day in Shuckers history for one of our rewinds, but that was a really big game that the Shuckers had against the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. They had one of the highest scoring innings in franchise history, and Weston Wilson had a career day that day with a multi-home run game. So we're going to go back and relive that game. 5:35 p.m. For our start time on that one. Stay tuned to Facebook and Twitter for what platform that is going to be on, but that will be our next edition of Shuckers Rewind coming your way. For a little bit of context, though, on Bowden Francis at this point in the ballgame. So he's sitting at 11 strikeouts. He struck out 6 in a row from the first through the third, had a foul ball out and a line drive. Then he proceeded to strike out 4 in a row and 5 of the next 6 that he faced. So that's how you get to 11 through 5 innings. But at this point, he's chasing 12 strikeouts, which is the franchise record for the Biloxi Shuckers. There have been 3 players who have done it in franchise history outside of him. Freddie Peralta did it in a game in August of 2017. Taylor Youngman did it in a game in August of 2016. But coincidentally, the third player to do it was Alec Bettinger, and he did it earlier in this series. He was actually the Game 1 starter for the Shuckers, and Bettinger K'd 12 against Pensacola. So they had already had one outing where a Shuckers pitcher had something like this to them, and Bettinger, at the time, he had a 10 strikeout game right before that. Then he had 12 against Pensacola, and now you have Bowden Francis, who was looking for 12 at this point, but also holding on to just a 1-run lead at the halfway point. So this is where the offense really needed to pick up and see if they could do something. Andro Chutura, not normally a starter for Pensacola. He started the year as a reliever, made some spot starts for them, and this is an inning where the Shuckers were able to get to him, so we'll see what the offense was able to do on this warm June afternoon last year to try and support Bowden Francis in his outstanding pitching effort.
Great, and now since we play American League Rules baseball, he gets to just hang out in the dugout. The set by Chutura, the 1-1. Inside missed. And the count now 2 balls and a strike to C.J. Hinojosa.
Yeah, and it was kind of a lengthy game on Sunday when it was hot out that allowed Trey Shupak to get that extra rest in the dugout. He said that after the game it was something that helped him lengthen his start. So Bowden Francis wouldn't mind hanging a little bit in the dugout as temperatures warm up, I'd imagine.
The set by Chutura. And after the hold, his 2-1. Taken down low, 3 balls and a strike. I know I talked to Trey. He did an interview with the folks at WLOX. They're going to be out here for the All-Star game on Monday, and as part of a feature on Trey, they were chatting with him, and on our way up to go do the interview, I was asking him about his start that he had made on Sunday, and apparently he was pining to try and come out for the 8th as the 3-1. Inside miss, ball 4. Back-to-back walks, and time is called as Brian Navarretto quickly comes over to chat with Andrew Chutura, his right-hander, after back-to-back free passes, and now in Biloxi on June 18th, 1 week from today. So 2 on, nobody gone, and Max McDowell, the batter. McDowell, a home run out to left his last time up. Waits for the right-hander Chutura, and his first pitch. And that one is hit well out towards the left field gap, but ranging over is Jellikowski and Kerrigan. Kerrigan will have space to make the catch. Both the runners are tagging, though, and Hinojosa slides into second, feet first. Caldwell with a round of third. And even though it's an out, McDowell moves the runners up and flips the lineup over for Cooper Hummel.
And that fly into left center field might have been hit nearly as far as his home run was out to straightaway left. His first time up, he got it way deep out there, and that's a productive out right there, a deep fly ball that allows not only Bruce Caldwell to be 90 feet away, but then Hinojosa, the more difficult tag from first to second, to get in easily.
Well, those are the kind of things that the Shuckers are doing that have just frustrated other teams as they have played against Biloxi lately. Infield draws in against Hummel the first pitch, and that's taken down low for a ball, 1-0. With the guys who are on this team that are veterans, and as you look up and down this Shuckers roster, really, pretty much everybody is an experienced Double-A player at this point, if not with some Triple-A experience. Example of Caldwell and Hinojosa both staying back, seeing that was going to be a pop-out the entire way, and then tagging up to get in scoring position with less than 2 outs. Those are the kind of things that you have to do to win a divisional race. The set and the 1-0. That one is cue-shotted foul at the plate. Might have gotten a piece of Hamilton. Might have gotten his hand as he turns around in a little bit of pain. And we'll have an extra moment as Jose Navas delivers the baseball. And as a courtesy to his fellow backstop mate, will swipe off home plate. He checks on the catcher Hamilton, who appears to be okay. We'll get ready to go again at 1-1 to Cooper Hummel. Always love that that's the moment where the umpire decides to brush off the dish. Infield still plays in the 1-1. That one is bounced foul into the Shuckers dugout, and the count 1-2 now to Hummel.
Just a way to be productive with the delay.
I mean,
make sure it clears off the plate.
Look,
everything's good.
The umpires certainly, they don't get to go into the dugouts in between half innings. So, I mean, maybe go over and just get yourself some water, some Gatorade. Yeah. Wipe off the sunglasses, grab the towel, wipe down some of the perspiration, but don't just dust off home plate. Chutura readies his 1-2. That one is bounded foul. Right side by Hummel, and it stays at 1 ball and 2 strikes to the Shuckers left fielder. Coop 0 for 2 today. Struck one really well in the first, but it was a line out to right, and then went down swinging on a changeup back in the third. 4th strikeout of the day for Chutura. He's registered 6, but 2 walks and then a fly out in this innings has put 2 men on and both in scoring position. Hinojosa at second and Caldwell at third. The set by the right-hander Chutura, and his 1-2 fouled back to the screen by Hummel, and the count stays a ball and 2 strikes. And of course, Trent Grisham looming on deck for the Shuckers. Well, Chutura, as we said, a product out of southeastern Louisiana, just down the road. Signed after pitching at Pearl River High School. The set and the 1-2. That one is hit on the ground past the dive of the second baseman Blankenhorn and out into right. Caldwell strides in, Hinojosa follows, and Cooper Hummel delivers a 2 RBI single to put the Shuckers in front 3-0 here in the bottom of the 5th.
Well, it's been great to see Cooper Hummel take advantage of some of his at-bats in this series. Came up in the 5 spot, got the start a couple of days ago, and had a crucial RBI single in the 6th inning of that game. And Coop continues to hit well. He's been batting mostly from the left side in this series as a switch hitter, and a lot of this series has been the Shuckers just singling to death the Blue Wahoos and bringing home runs with hits in the shallow outfield.
Now, there have been a couple of big flies in this series, but a lot of it has just been timely hitting and driving in guys in scoring position. Here's Grisham from the left side. The first pitch to him, that's lifted out into left center field. Shallow and playable for Kerrigan, who comes on and reaches up and makes the grab. Everything hit in the air today for Grish, but he's been retired all 3 times. That's the second out, and Jake Gatewood will be the batter.
You know, we're not going to see Grisham bat again in this game. We're going to skip over the 7th inning for the Shuckers just to have this be a condensed version of this game. But this was one of the rare games at this point in the year where Grisham went 0 for 4, but you could still see it at this point in the year. Even though he went 0 for 4, everything was hit in the air. He was selective about which pitches he went after, struck most of them well, and that fell right in line with what his plan was for the entire season. Pull the ball more, hit the ball in the air, don't pound it into the ground as much, really try and lift and push. And this was the end of the stretch that we saw for Grisham here in Biloxi in 2019. He'd play in this ball game at MGM Park. 4 more for the Shuckers up in Jackson, Tennessee, and then he would be in the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game, and after the All-Star Game, on up to San Antonio, and the rest is history after that.
Here at home, looking for a 5-game sweep of Pensacola. The set and the 0-1. Gatewood takes outside, 1-1. No action out in the Blue Wahoos bullpen, which has been taxed, to say the least, in this series. Fewest pitchers that they've thrown in a game came on Friday night when the Shuckers won 9-1. And it took just 3 pitchers to get through the game. The set by Chutura, the 1-1. And that one is cranked out to left field, ranging over and down to the right of the left fielder, Jellikowski. Bounces off the wall, and it's bumbled. So here comes Hummel going for the plate, and he is in to score on an RBI double by Jake Gatewood. And the Shuckers take a 4-0 lead here in the bottom of the 5th.
Well, they really do come in bunches. That has been the theme of some of these innings all series long for Biloxi. Multi-run innings yesterday, the day prior. Every single game in this series, they've struck for at least 1 multi-run inning. And today, no different. It comes in the 5th, 3 of them home, and the singles are just
roster. And with that, a bullpen catcher will head out for the Blue Wahoos. But Jake Gatewood at second, 2 gone in the inning, and Patrick Leonard the batter. Here's the set and the first offer from Chutura. That one is fouled back to the screen, came inside for a strike, 0-1. 4-0 Shuckers here in the bottom of the 5th inning. Solo home run by Max McDowell in the 3rd gave Biloxi their first run, and now 3 runs here in the bottom of the 5th, thanks to a pair of walks and a 2 RBI single by Hummel, as the slider is swung through.
So if you're still with us, you heard us talking about it at the beginning of this half inning. Myself and my broadcast partner, Andrew Chapman, from last year, we were talking about how if the Shuckers could have a longer inning, that could give Bowden Francis some time to cool off in the dugout. We've cut a few mound visits out of this half inning, and you could already tell this was by far and away the longest half inning of the afternoon for the Shuckers offensively. So really, it was great that after Bowden had, walked the guy in the 5th, did work out of it without much more damage, he had the opportunity to sit down and really cool off in the dugout, because this is a game that it started off at 82 degrees outside, but that was 82 at 10:35, so the temperature only climbed and climbed as the day went along there at MGM Park in the middle of June.
And even when you're wearing one, that doesn't mean that hurts any less to foul it off of the inside of your foot. So after a stroll around the dirt circle, Leonard is back in with a man on second, 2 gone, and an 0-2 count. And Chutura readies to deal. Here it is. One is lifted out of play right side. And we'll do it at 0-2 again to Leonard. By the way, that foul ball is brought to you by Glass Doctor. If that's your windshield that took a foul ball or any other kind of damage, call Glass Doctor at 228-641-9167 or visit gulfcoast.glassdoctor.com. The set and the 0-2. Inside edge called third strike. Examined for a while by Jose Navas before he rings up Patrick Leonard. Go to the top of the 6th inning, the Biloxi Shuckers now
So I think you
leading
can
the
see that
Pensacola Blue
universally
Wahoos
across
4-0.
both sides for the day, the strike zone was a little open, and Bowden Francis might have benefited from that, but nonetheless, you have to be able to pitch to your spots and be able to do that. So he came out for the 6th inning, and was facing 9-1-2, so Jellikowski, Davis, and Travis Blankenhorn at this point. As he's pitching to Taylor Jellikowski to lead things off, just want to remind you that this episode of Shuckers Rewind is brought to you by our friends at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. They are our presenting sponsor for today's Shuckers Rewind. As we take a look back at one of the best pitch games from a strikeout perspective in Shuckers franchise history. For Bowden Francis, already sitting at 11 strikeouts heading into the 6th inning. So he had a stretch where he struck out 6 in a row from the 1st to the 3rd. We talked about it on the broadcast, but that came too shy of tying the Southern League record. 8 straight strikeouts is the number that you're looking for. And then he turned around, got a pop out, gave up a single, but then struck out 4 in a row after that. So this was a high-volume strikeout day for Bowden Francis, who at this point in the season, you could see him finding his form at Double-A, but he was 1-0 with a 5.93 ERA, so an outing like this really helped drive down his earned run average as he turned in just an exceptional start against Pensacola on this day.
And certainly this game is far from over. But the Shuckers have just been on some kind of tear right now, and part of it has been the starting pitching that they've gotten. Bowden Francis rocks and deals, and the first pitch slider is swung through and missed for a strike by Jalen Davis, 0-1. And with that leadoff walk here in the inning, the Shuckers are going to get some action going in their bullpen. The set, the 0-1. Slider cued off the end of the bat, foul, and it's 0-2 now to Jalen Davis. Bowden Francis now up to 86 pitches on the day. So he's approaching his limit. Though the right-hander has been a workhorse for the Shuckers this year. The set and the 0-2. Inner edge fastball missed, and the count runs to a ball and 2 strikes to Jalen Davis. Even though the ERA has been a little elevated at times, outside of his start that he had against Tennessee, Francis has gone at least 5 innings in every other outing. Fastball at the knees for a called third strike. An even dozen for Bowden Francis as he gets Jalen Davis looking for the first out here in the inning. "12 strikeouts for Bowden Francis, just continuing to add on to a new career high. 5 of them looking, and Travis Blankenhorn stands in from the left side. First offering outside for a ball, 1-0.
So as you might know, if you looked at the title for this, that's the last strikeout that Bowden gets in this game. But it doesn't take away from how impressive it is that he doesn't strike out any of the last couple of batters that he faces. But we'll talk a little bit about, what this stretch was like for Bowden. He had this game, which he ends up not giving up another hit in the ball game. 6 innings, a 1-hit ball with 12 strikeouts. But then he turned right around, and on the last day of the first half, he turned in an absolute gem against the Jackson Generals. 7 innings, 2 hits, and he struck out 10 in that outing as well. And he kind of went on another one of these rolls where he just struck out batter after batter after batter. And the strikeouts piled out throughout the course of the year for Bowden, so much so that he actually, even though he didn't start the year with Biloxi, ended up setting the single-season record for strikeouts in a year for Biloxi Shuckers pitcher. That overtakes the likes of Brandon Woodruff, Aaron Wilkerson, all of those guys who have been great in Biloxi for those fantastic individual seasons. No one struck him out better than Bowden Francis did in 2019, and so that's why we're glad that we were able to feature him on this, and why I think the Brewers fans should be really excited about what they have in this guy.
One gone, a man on first. The righty Francis. His 3-2 pitch. Bounder foul right side. And the count will stay at 3-2 to Blankenhorn. And that draws our attention down to the bullpen, where the right-hander Devin Williams is starting to get loose for the Shuckers. Saw Devin pitch in game number 1 of this series. The set, and again the payoff from Francis. Cued off foul left side, and it'll stay at 3-2 to Travis Blankenhorn. Well, Blankenhorn, ever since his promotion here to the Blue Wahoos, has been an everyday player. Has been a pivotal part of the success so far for the Blue Wahoos, as the 3-2 is outside ball 4. Time is called, and Bob Malachy will come out of the dugout for the first time today to talk to his tall right-hander. Third walk issued by Francis, but his second here in this frame. Malachy will come out. Fans, we've talked so much about the 2019 Southern League All-Star Game, but don't forget about the events.
So again, as Bob Malachy came out to talk to Bowden Francis, at this point, it's a warm afternoon in Biloxi. You're trying to stretch out and get as much length as you possibly can out of your starter. We mentioned the fact that really the previous day, the Shuckers were only forced to use 2 pitchers. They had only used 1 the night before with Trey Shupak on the mound. They had taxed their bullpen a little bit going back to game number 2 of this series. Yohan Belisario gave them 5. They were forced to use 3 pitchers after that. But really, at this point, this is kind of what you were getting every time out for the Shuckers. It seemed like their starters were going to give you at least 6 and no more than 1 or 2 runs allowed over the course of their starts. And so, with Bob coming out right there, you know that he was just trying to settle down Bowden as the pitch count climbed and try and get him to a spot to where he can just finish off this outing and really get him into the dugout and give Devin Williams an opportunity. And we'll see Devin pitch in the top of the 7th. That's where we're going to go after this half inning wraps up. Because it's fun to see a guy who, yet again, turned into a major leaguer. We have the 2 guys from Biloxi who started the year with the Shuckers and ended up in Milwaukee by the middle of August. Both of them were still playing in this game at the end of June, so I wanted to leave Devin in there and give folks an opportunity to see him.
And that throw to first is actually by Wilson, and it's in time to record the out of Kerrigan. So Wilson over there at third had a little bit of a bobble. That's going to allow Blankenhorn to move to second and Jellikowski to move around to third, but he does get the out over at first as Randy Cesar comes to bat. And as he does, let's pause 10 seconds for station identification on the Shuckers Broadcast Network. Bowden Francis deals the first pitch. It's cut off by Caldwell, throws on the run in front of Hinojosa, and records the out. And just like that, Bowden Francis works around a pair of walks and 2-minute scoring.
It's so funny to see a guy like Francis who, again, on this day, that finishes off his piece of this outing. But on this day, it was strikeout, strikeout, strikeout. And you get to a spot where you guys have first on second, 1 out. And just like that, ground ball out, and he's able to get out of the jam. And he did that so much throughout the course of the year. But now we get to see Devin Williams on the mound for the Shuckers. And this was a fun point in the season for Devin, because right after the All-Star break, this is when he would actually, in the next 10 days or so, he would shift into the bullpen for Biloxi, and he would actually move into that back-end spot and split closing duties with Nate Greep. And you could see it at this point that the confidence was there for Devin. He obviously had Tommy John surgery and had returned in 2018 with Carolina, but now with another year in his back pocket, I remember talking to him, and he said that every time that he went out, he just felt more and more confident and more sure, and everything was lining up. This is where the fastball velocity had also really ramped up. At this point in the year, he was consistently throwing 97, 98 miles an hour with his fastball. He was throwing his changeup, and then he also had just a devastating slider that he was able to utilize. But you get to see it from this angle, just a dart of a fastball, a little bit of run to it. And this is why I left this 7th inning in here for this edition of Rewind, is to be able to see one of the guys who turned into a major leaguer for the Shuckers and watch him pitch. And that slider right there, even though it wasn't a strike, that is just a ton of fun to look at.
As well, a 4-0 lead in the 7th. Biloxi opened it up a little further with 3 runs in the bottom of the 5th. Here's the pitch. Hamilton swings and fouls it right off of the mask of McDowell. And Jose Navas, the home plate umpire, will promptly let McDowell take a break. And now he's handed off his sunglasses to the bat boy. And gotta wonder if those sunglasses might have snapped behind the mask. That one caught him flush, just nicked the bat of Hamilton and then directly into the face mask of Max McDowell. So a 1 and 2 strike count now. Williams works out of the stretch, and he kicks home. And this pitch is lofted out into left field, pretty deep out there as it starts to hook towards left center and drifting back into the alley. Cooper Hummel, he's able to jog and have room in front of the track to make the catch. And Hamilton retired. A quick 2 outs for Devin Williams out of the bullpen. Very efficient series so far for Devin Williams. As mentioned, we saw him in the opener back on June 7th, Friday night. Went 2 shutout innings, did not allow a hit or a walk, and struck out 4. It was perfect baseball for Devin. And he's retired 8 in a row when you collect all of his work together so far against the Blue Wahoos. Michael Davis, the left-handed hitting shortstop, is in. Swings at the first pitch and rips it into the screen above his own dugout. 0-1 on Davis. So Bowden Francis would be in line for his 3rd win on the year. The Shuckers have held Pensacola quiet. This pitch fouled back and up into the party suite, where a number of fans are enjoying a daytime game today. 0-2 on Davis. Devin Williams, the base is empty. 2 away in the top of the 7th. Shuckers leading 4-0, looking for a 1-2-3 inning. Francis struck out the side twice. Williams trying to retire a quick 3 in a row. And he misses inside with a fastball, 95 miles an hour. And it's 1 and 2 strikes on Michael Davis. Davis, the left-handed hitter from Bedford, Texas, with a upright and slightly open stance. The 1-2 swings and misses, and a heater of a fastball, 95 on the gun from Williams.
So there was the heater from Devin Williams to close off his first inning of work. He ended up pitching 2 innings in this one. In the 8th, strikeout, line out, walk, single, but then a strikeout. And so we head to the bottom of the 8th inning to watch the Shuckers offense hopefully do a little bit of work. Right now, Jake Gatewood leads it off. Patrick Leonard, Dylan Thomas will be the batters. Again, thanks for tuning in to this edition of Shuckers Rewind so far. Reminder that coming up, our next one is going to be on Monday night. We're going to go back to this day in Shuckers history. It's going to be a game from April 20th. We're going to look back at the game from last season. It was one of the most explosive offensive outputs in a single inning for the Shuckers, not just last season, but in franchise history. So we're going to rewind that one. Weston Wilson had a 2-home run game. We've shown a lot of pitching matchups so far for our editions of Shuckers Rewinds. Coming up on Monday night, we're going to look at an offensive game, and so we'll have that for you. The platform will be available for you. Check Shuckers social media on Twitter and Facebook. We'll have it available for you there to find out where we're going to be coming up on Monday night. 5:35 is going to be your first pitch, though, as we replay back through one of the most exciting offensive games that the Shuckers had in 2019. Just one more quick reminder that today's broadcast of Shuckers Rewind is brought to you by our friends at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. They're a great sponsor of the Shuckers, and they're our presenting sponsor for this edition of Shuckers Rewind.
Big hack by Jake. He comes up and just tips it foul. We'll do it again at 3-2. And so as a result, that just strikes fear into a pitching staff, and especially when you throw them in the heart of this order between Grisham and Leonard. The 3-2, taken down low, ball 4. So Gatewood draws the walk. He's on base, and Leonard will come to the dish. 4-0 Shuckers, a run in the bottom of the third, and then 3 in the bottom of the fifth. For the Shuckers, as they sent 7 men to the plate. The multi-run innings continuing for the Shuckers in this series. The set by the right-hander Bray in his pitch. That's taken in the knees for a strike, 0-1. Patrick Leonard, a single back in the second, reached on an error in the fourth. He was a strikeout victim his last time up. Went down on a borderline pitch at the bottom of the zone. The set and the 0-1. That one is fouled back to the screen. It's 0-2 to Pat. Action has cooled for the Shuckers out in their bullpen right now. So we'll see if Devin Williams is going to come out and pitch in the 9th inning. If he did, that would mean he would be eligible for the save. My personal favorite in baseball, the 0-2. And that's fouled back off to the right side by Leonard, and the count stays at no balls and 2 strikes. The 3-out save is my favorite quirky rule of baseball, I think. Or quirky scoring decision, I should say.
Saw there was a guy, it was just yesterday actually in the Southern League, 4-inning save out of Tennessee.
Yep. The set and the 0-2. Inner edge misses 1-2. But my favorite is always when it's in a blowout. It's like an 11-0 game, and you see that a guy gets a save, and you're like, wait, what? How do you get, unless he came in and the game was scoreless and they did what Auburn did yesterday against North Carolina and just scored 13, how does that happen? 1-2 curveball bounded foul. And the count will stay at a ball and 2 strikes to Patrick Leonard. And you know, it's funny, the Carolina League announced their All-Stars today. 7 guys from the Mudcats named to the All-Star team, including the likes of Mario Feliciano, Peyton Henry, also had Dylan File, who's pitched really well and really seems like he is due for a promotion to Biloxi in very short order. As the set, the 1-2, fouled off again by Leonard. And then the likes of Yoanel Segovia, who's already here, Rodrigo Benoit, but then, I love this, Matt Hardy has been named an All-Star. And speaking of the 3-inning save, I really got that rule internalized from an appearance that Hardy had in the Pioneer League when I was there in 2017. The set, the 1-2. Curveball in tight around the chin of Leonard. He backs up. It's now 2-2. It's the game that I always refer to, the Labor Day game that was 20-13 in favor of the Helena Brewers, where they were playing the Missoula Osprey, and Missoula hit 7 home runs, and the game was never close. Like, Helena got out and ran away with it early. The set and the 2-2. Curveball in there for a called third strike at the knees. Leonard goes down looking for the first out, and Dylan Thomas will be the batter. But one of the many wrinkles of that game that day was that Matt Hardy came in, and I believe he gave up 5 home runs in that game. And he was pulled out with 1 out in the 9th inning when Missoula had gotten within 8 at 20-12. And I talked to manager Nestor Corridor about that after the game. Nestor, obviously spending part of the season with us this year, as the pitch to Thomas is popped up out of play left side for a strike, 0-1. I'll never forget, I was asking him, I said, look, after Matt had given up about his 4th home run, which it's the Pioneer League, so take that for what it's worth. Nate Greep gave up 12 combined earned runs in his first 3 appearances in the Pioneer League, and look where he is now. But I'll never forget, I asked Nestor why Matt stayed in there as long as he did. The 0-1 swung through and missed for a changeup. It's now 0-2 to Thomas, with the Shuckers leading 4-0 in the bottom of the 8th. And he said, I was trying to get him the 3-inning save. And eventually he just couldn't. So they brought in Parker Bean, and what did Parker Bean do? Immediately gave up a home run, the 7th of the day for Missoula. And finally the madness ended after about 4.5 hours. 0-2 is outside. It's 1-2 now to Dylan Thomas. But yeah, those are the games that you always remember. I think that probably the guys in Las Vegas are going to remember the one from last night, 17-7.
Oh, is that what it finished?
Yeah, that's where
I last saw 8-0 in the first.
Yeah, that's sometimes you generally check out at about that point. The set and the 1-2 pitch from Bray on the way to Thomas. And that one is hit well out to right field, but it'll hang up for Davis. Comes on a few steps, settles, and makes the grab. 2 gone now, and Weston Wilson the batter. as Luke Barker has gotten up and started warming again for the Shuckers. A little bit of right-handed action out of the Blue Wahoos bullpen. We'll see if Adam Bray can finish off this 8th inning for them as Wes stands in. Set and the first offer. That one skips in the dirt and is lost by Hamilton, but because of where it was around home plate, no opportunity for Gatewood to advance. So it's just ball 1 to Wes. Wilson 0 for 3 today. Good at bat for Wes his last time up. He wound up striking out on a shin-high pitch in the 6th inning. It was the 9th pitch of the at-bat. So a tough strikeout for Wes there. They set the 1-0. That one is tipped foul for a strike 1-1. 4-0 Shuckers here in the bottom of the 8th inning as we move up towards 1 o'clock here in Biloxi. Getaway day for the Shuckers and the Blue Wahoos. The 1-1. Curveball high. 2 balls and a strike to Wilson. Barker, though, as we said, has started to warm up again. Would not be a safe situation for Barker, but certainly an opportunity to come in and pitch a spell and do something for the Shuckers after Nate Grebe came in and got his 14th save of the year last night. 2-1 is hit well out towards deep right center field. Long run back for Kerrigan at the track. It's off the top of the wall and down. Gatewood being waved around Wilson. Stunner steps around second, but Gatewood scores from first on an RBI double by Weston Wilson. And the Shuckers get a little bit more breathing room in the bottom of the 8th. They now lead it 5-0.
And you really like to see that out of Wes right there. It was a well-struck double into the alley and really probably the most best hit ball he's had in this entire series. So for Wes, it's a nice bounce back after 3 strikeouts in this game, and he's able to contribute late, just add to that lead. And Pensacola, they're going to even have to make a pitching change.
As Bruce Caldwell stands in to bat, and the first offering from Jordan Gore is laced out into left field and down for a knock. Wilson around third. He will come in and score, and Bruce Caldwell delivers an RBI single to put the Shuckers up 6-0 here in the bottom of the 8th.
All right, so the game's 6-0 at this point, and this is the fun wrinkle about this game is that Jordan Gore came in, and Gore is an infielder, but you might have seen it on that first pitch that he threw to Bruce Caldwell. He came out throwing seeds. Gore was not one of these guys who you bring in as a position player who is going to lob the ball over the plate at, 50 miles an hour. He was hurling while he was out there, and I think that he was kind of the designated position player pitching for the Blue Wahoos and flashed a really good arm. And I remember talking to some of the guys on the bus on our way to Jackson after this game and asking them about that, and they said that Caldwell got him on that fastball because it was a little middle, but they said that's not something that you expect when a position player comes out to pitch. But there you go, a wild pitch, and still, that's not a soft wild pitch by any stretch of the imagination.
So man on second, 2-1 count, 2 across for the Shuckers here in the bottom of the 8th. They now lead it 6-0. As the Shuckers looking to close out a sweep of the Blue Wahoos here at home. The set and the 2-1. Swing and a miss, and Hinojosa flings the bat. Gets caught in the netting in front of the dugout for the Blue Wahoos, and kind enough to retrieve it there and hand it back to C.J. Hinojosa is Tanner English as he ripped it out of the netting. But look out below as Andro Chutura was just hanging out at the railing.
Is that who that was?
All of a sudden, the bat is flying right at him. He has since gone back, and he will sit back on the top of the bench now in the dugout. The set, the 2-2. Swinging a tipper foul. And the count stays at 2-2 to Hinojosa. And again, this is not a typical position player pitching. Jordan Gore is pumping 93-94 right now.
Yeah, this looks like a guy who's definitely had some pitching, whether it be high school, college for him. At some point, he has the consistent mechanics of a guy who's been up on the mound before and just a guy in a kind of finish the game sort of role in these situations for Pensacola when needed.
Other appearance for him this season was against Jacksonville earlier this month. The 2-2 popped up on the infield. Gore loses the hat, still staring up, and everybody collides there as Inosa was running down the line, almost gets in the way, and the catch is ultimately made by Brian Navarretto. Oh, that was nearly disastrous.
That's when you can tell that this was game number 65 of the year, even though it was an important game. But by that point, the score had kind of gotten out of hand, and the Shuckers were leading. But that's where guys are grinning at each other. You saw the great shot from our first base camera of the dugout after CJ loses his bat. You know, guys are still laughing and having fun. And that's the fun thing about baseball is that you play so many of these games, even though, look, the Blue Wahoos, at this point, they're staring a sweep in the face, but there's always tomorrow, there's always another day, and that's what's so great about the game. And, you know, for Biloxi, they were just having fun because they were just rolling right along. And I left this in here, top of the 9th inning, Shuckers looking to close it out. And we get to see Luke Barker pitch again. And Barker, you know, really, if it weren't for Nate Greep in the bullpen with him, would have been one of the most talked about closers in the Southern League. And it was amazing that the Shuckers in 2019, really the entire year, they pretty much had a 2-closer system. Greep was the primary, but then it was Barker the first half of the season, and then all the way until late July, it was Devin Williams splitting time with Greep at the back end of the bullpen. And that's just something that we've talked to, you know, Chris Harris about it, who's the broadcaster for the Mississippi Braves, but was in Biloxi for the first 3 seasons. The Brewers draft that way. They approach their minor league system that way. They have guys who are specifically closers. And so in this situation, look, it's not a safe situation, but you have someone who you can turn the game over to and you feel pretty confident is going to slam the door. And this is another guy who, he's not a top 30 prospect, anything along those lines, but I would not be surprised if once baseball gets up and rolling again, if Luke Barker doesn't find his way into the Milwaukee Brewers bullpen. And he doesn't do it with anything complicated. He throws a fastball and a splitter. That's it. I remember talking to him in 2018 when he came up for the playoffs, and he was a break glass in case of emergency guy if the Shuckers needed to make a roster move or something along those lines. And I ran into him in the clubhouse, and I asked him, I said, okay, what do you throw? He said, fastball splitter. I said, and? He's like, no, that's it. Fastball splitter. But when you have a splitter like that, and that's the kind of contact that you get out of it, it just drops off and dies right at the plate, and mix it with a good fastball, you were able to do that. And so now 2 outs in the 9th inning, and the Shuckers are just trying to finish off a sweep of the Blue Wahoos from June of last year.
But they came into their series against Pensacola here at MGM Park, 3.5 games back of the Blue Wahoos. They proceeded to sweep Pensacola and left that series a 1.5 games up, and ultimately clinched the second half division title to win both halves and secure 4 out of 5 here at home in the playoffs, as the first pitch is swung through and missed for a strike by Caleb Hamilton, 0-1. Well, coming into this series, the Shuckers, they had great momentum as they were trailing by a game. If they hold on here, which is 1 out left to go, as the 0-1 outside for a ball, 1-1, they will depart this series with a 4-game lead over the Blue Wahoos with just 5 games left to play in the first half. So the magic number will go from 4 to 2. Barker gets ready, and the right-hander, his 1-1 pitch. Outside, that misses. And the count now 2 balls and a strike to Hamilton, who's 0 for 3 today with 2 strikeouts. Barker, long stare into the catcher McDowell, has his sign, and the 2-1. Wave and a miss at a splitter. And the Blue Wahoos down to their last strike. Shuckers leading 6-0, nobody on base. And the 2-2 pitch. Inside missed. And the count is run full to Caleb Hamilton. Barker wide open, stands as he waits. The set, and the 3-2 offering. Bouncer out to the mound. Barker has it, underhands to first. It's in time. And the Shuckers have swept the Blue Wahoos here in Biloxi.
So again, this was a massive moment for the Shuckers to come away with a series sweep of Pensacola, and I'll let this whole thing run out here with a high five line, and you can see it. Again, it's at this point, this game took about 2.5 hours, so at this point it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But this is not a normal high five line. By the time that these guys wrapped up this sweep of Pensacola, they had won 6 straight games. And this was not a celebration of winning a first-half title, but you can see right here with the way that these guys are hugging and high-fiving that they really felt like this was the moment that they had come away and were ultimately going to win the first-half South Division title, which they did 2 days later. They were able to do in Jackson, Tennessee. But Bowden Francis was a big piece of that for his performance that he had. And you can see here that this was an excited Shuckers ball club as they were about to get on a bus and go on one of the longest trips that we make every year, which is heading up to Jackson, Tennessee. Well, that's going to do it for us here on this edition of Shuckers Rewind. Again, want to say a big thanks to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. They were our presenting sponsor for today's episode of Shuckers Rewind. A reminder, we're coming back at you again tomorrow, coming on Monday, at 5:35 p.m. We're going to look back at a game from this day in Shuckers history. It's going to be from April 20th of last year. It was one of the most exciting offensive games that the Shuckers played all season long. We're hoping to have a guest for you for that one. But regardless, stay tuned to the Shuckers social media. We will have where that's going to be played, which platform it's going to be on, but we hope that you tune in. Thanks so much for making us a part of your Saturday afternoon. We wanted to try out a little bit of day baseball. We hope that you all enjoyed it. A rewind of one of the best pitching performances from the Shuckers last season. We are looking forward to seeing you on Shuckers Rewind coming up on Monday night. But thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody, and please be sure to stay safe.